Our next guests are Lisa and Ray Hamilton and Joanne Mudd Miller. Welcome.
Thank you.
This last month, April, was organ donor month. And so I thought it appropriate that we have our organ donor, our organ recipient on here today.
Thank you.
Along with Lisa is her husband Ray, and then Joanne Mudd Miller is the circuit court clerk who promotes the organ donor program through her office. And Joanne, you can mention how that works.
Okay. First of all, we sign people up when they come in to get their driver's license. One of my staff members will say, do you want to be an organ donor? Do you want to donate $1 to the Kentucky Organ Donor? Or do you want to be on the Organ Donor Registry? And what that does, that puts you on the National Organ Donor Registry. And that way, if something happens where you might be in the position that you can donate your organs, your family knows if you talk to them about it. And also, you're on that registry so they can contact your family, say, hey, that person's on the registry. Would you consider donating their organs? The circuit clerks have been doing this since 1998, but the registry started in May 15th of 2007. And once you sign up on that registry, you're on there permanently unless you ask to be taken off. Mm-hmm. So I am a big advocate. I've been on both sides. I've had a family member that needed a heart, and I've had a family member that was an organ donor. It's until it touches your family, you don't realize how important being an organ donor is. It saves people's lives. It saves people who they don't think on down the road they'll be even living. So in this county, Washington County is a very generous county, and I'm proud to announce that we're in the 55 percentile of the national average, which is very, very good. That we are on that registry, that our people donate 55%. When we ask them, 55% of Washington Countyans donate that dollar and sign up for the registry. So, I mean, that's a big thing. It's a big thing. And that's just happened in the last 3 or 4 months that we've reached that point. But we've probably got in this county 4,000 and some organ donor registrants. But only a certain amount of people can donate organs. There's a small percentage. I mean, I think it's 1%. That you die and that you're able to donate organs. So, just because you sign up for the registry doesn't mean that you're going to be one of those people that would be able to donate. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of procedures that have to happen for you to be an organ donor. Mm-hmm. So, I had an uncle, he was 52 years old, he had a massive stroke, and he was able to donate some of his organs. He donated his corneas, he donated his skin. There's lots of things that you can donate as an organ donor. So I do know that being an organ donor, you can help so many different people. Like one person can help 4 or 5 people, 5 or 6 people, just depending on what they're needing. In Washington County, we've got so many organ recipients, like Lisa, who we've had heart transplants recipients, we've had double lung transplants, kidney transplants, of all age of people. I mean, ranging from 3 years old up to, I think one of the oldest ones that I know of is over 60 that's received a heart. So, I mean, people would be surprised in this county how many people have received organs.
Yeah.
And how important it is to be signed up for that organ donation. So when you sign up in the circuit clerk's office and we ask you that magic question, do you want to be an organ donor? Please sign up. And then the symbol is put on the front of your license. It's a little heart symbol. And we just recently had a bake sale to raise money for the Trust for Life to help do advertisements and make people more aware of organ donations. And we raised $1,000 in one afternoon. So I'm very happy with that situation. We did really well. But some of the things that are misgiven and people ask us in my office are, oh, I'm too old to donate organs. Well, the oldest organ donor person was 89 years old. So there is something that you can donate. They say, oh, they're going to take my organs before I die. That's not the way it works. There's a big thing that you go through, a person that wants to donate their organs. Just because you have it on your license don't mean they're going to take your organs and before you die. That's not the way it works, because like I said, only a small percentage of people can donate organs. So another questions they'll say is, let's see, I wrote some of the stuff down so I didn't want to forget it. Does it cost a person who donates their organs? The family that donates, no, it does not cost them anything. If you decide, your family decides they want to donate your organs, then it automatically, they go through the whole process. It does not cost them 1 penny. Can an organ donor have a normal funeral? That's been asked. Yes, they can have a normal funeral. They have an open casket funeral. It does not disfigure that person at all. So I know this sounds kind of morbid, but people ask those questions and they don't sign up because they don't realize the procedure and how it works. And people in the public need to talk, or an individual person, everybody talk to their family, say this is what I want to do. We need to make it more aware.
Well, I can speak to that fact because my husband was an organ donor. So both of us are, and it was on our license. And I don't know, I guess the hospital, when we were at the emergency room, if they checked that registry, but I
That's
knew
what they
that
do.
they, you know, I know too when you go to the doctor or if, say if you're at the hospital, they always ask you if you're an organ donor for something or if, you know, so anyway, my husband was an organ donor, and you know, there were only certain things that could be donated, you know, because of the you know, situation. So every situation is different. But so I know there were, you know, some things that he was able to donate. But I know that, you know, as you said, Joanne, it doesn't cost anything, and you know, and you know, and you have normal funerals and but they do call you and ask. You have to go through an interview process. You know, I had to over the phone with the organ CODA.
Trust for Life CODA.
CODA. About, you know, lots and lots of questions, and so that was a lengthy process. That took, you know, probably, I don't know how long, an hour or two. I couldn't tell you exactly, but knowing, and that was it. That was all that had to be done, and so I just know that it's worth every bit of that, you know, to be able to help someone else. Get
Like Lisa.
like exactly like sitting right here in front of us.
That's exactly
I know
right.
my husband wasn't able to donate lungs, but as you mentioned, Joanne, right here in our own county, the number of recipients is amazing.
Phenomenal.
And who would ever have thought, Lisa, they could even do lungs? I mean,
know.
how long have they been doing lungs?
I'm not really sure.
72 was the first one.
Was it
Really?
1972, yeah.
1972 was the first double lung transplant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
and
it's been around a lot longer than most people think. But
yeah.
some of it's,
I at 16 signed my license and told my parents that I was an organ donor, and I got questioned why. I said, well, when I'm done with them, I won't need them anymore, so
That's right.
somebody else can. And that was my attitude.
Yeah.
And long before I knew my wife would need a double lung transplant. So it's kind of come full circle for me. And you know, as much as we cherish the miracle of the double lung transplant, we still, you know, we still think about the donor's family, because in our moment of great joy, they were in a moment of great loss. So, you know, it goes without saying that through every transplant recipient, there is always somebody who's losing a loved one. So it's far deeper than
here we
just
go.
signing your license, because you yourself know what was donated helped a family out that was in need, and it's
And
a
that's
great joy for them.
that is a good feeling.
Yeah.
I know,
And on down, I mean, the days past, it's even better because you don't really, you're in such a turmoil and you don't really know. You know what you've done, but you don't really realize it. And when you start thinking about it, or you get to meet the recipient, which does happen,
right.
it's
A lot of families want, and
It's like a closure
they,
for 'em.
They want to remain anonymous, and through
Yeah.
CODA it is.
That's
We
true.
can't find out who Lisa's donor is without them wanting to contact. So that we can't just walk up one day and say, "Oh, thank you so much," and flood their emotions that way. So I mean,
We have no
the
idea.
donor's family is
Right.
protected. That's
Yeah.
something. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had
and the
that question
registry
a
is
lot.
too. It's confidential. Once you
Yeah.
sign up for that registry, nobody has access to it. No.
But say, I mean, I'm just curious, if you went into the hospital and your family wasn't with you, of course, they asked me, and I knew Mike was an organ donor, but what if they, how do...
They check that registry.
So the hospital can
Yes,
check the registry
yes.
then? Okay, that's what I wondered,
Yes.
because then they would be able to
Yes.
ask.
That's why that registry came
Okay.
about, because
Yeah.
that type of thing that you just talked about kept falling through the cracks, so they wanted to
Yes.
come up with something that they could go to and know
That they
who's on
are
there.
an
Yeah.
organ donor.
Yeah, that's
And the
right.
Kentucky Organ Donor Association, that we're referring to as CODA, is very good about keeping, they've stayed in touch with me, sent me, emails, and they're a very supportive organization. I've been
Yes.
very, very impressed with them. So, and then, as you mentioned, Ray, you derive some sense of satisfaction knowing that even though you've had a loss, you've been able, that person, and I know my husband would be very proud of that, being able to donate things, as you said, he doesn't need anymore, to someone
very
else to help them in their lives.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Lisa needs
Thank
to tell her a little bit
Yes,
about her
and
story.
I want to know exactly. Of course, you started out, Lisa, with
Cystic fibrosis.
cystic fibrosis,
Correct.
which of course affects the lungs.
Mostly.
Okay,
Yeah. It
so
also,
explain that to me.
well, oh gosh, there's so much information. It affects your lungs.
Cystic fibrosis.
Cystic fibrosis
Okay.
affects your lungs, your pancreas, your liver, basically all your organs, but mostly your lung. Most of the symptoms are from lung. Mine were. And where to start?
So when were you diagnosed with cystic fibrosis? How old were you?
Very young. Probably, I was probably 6 months old.
Oh, okay.
And it's genetic. And so most of my life, well, until I was in my 20s, I, did very well. Trying to think. In 2011, well, each year, probably in my 20s, I started. Each year I would have to go in for 2 weeks to the hospital and stay for IV antibiotics. And then that went on for 15 years or so. Before my
The first time
transplant.
that you actually hospitalized was a year after we moved in our house.
Correct. So
That was
in the
20 years
1990s. But let me start out first saying, my double lung transplant was on January 25th of 2012. And backing up, like I said, they call them flare-ups, and I would be in the hospital. But in 2011, I was admitted in December, and I thought it was going to be a 2-week, stay. And I was going through the process to see if I was a candidate to be
Receive it.
possibly put on the list.
Okay.
Because, that it is not a cure, but it does prolong your life if things go well. And so mine's been 4 years, 3 months, and 16 days today. But
today.
yeah,
That's great.
we got the call. I was only on the list for
7 days.
1 week. And we got the call. Went into surgery like
3 in the morning.
5 or 3 in the morning. And at 11, they came out and told them that it was complete.
He come out and sat down on the floor and said everything was a perfect match down to the antibodies, and she's doing great. We'll have her in recovery in about an hour. And then he went on to tell me, said, if I'd have known how bad her lungs were, she probably would have been a candidate. Because her lungs were that deteriorated from the CF. And he said, they didn't even come out. We kind of had to pull them out in pieces. So she used her original lungs up to their full extent. And
Using
then
them for all they had.
And who would ever thought when you got on that transplant list that you would have gotten that transplant so
Soon.
soon?
Yeah.
There was some divine intervention there,
Yes,
wasn't it?
ma'am.
They knew when
Yes, ma'am.
you needed those lungs.
she was a
I
B
used
blood
it,
type,
but,
which was the rarest of the blood types, and they said it could be a long time before a B donor. And so on the Sunday before the transplant, we were at church and had everybody pray over us. And that night that we got the call, there were 3 calls for 3 B donors that matched her. And the surgeon said, somebody upstairs was really looking out for her. I said, he's just showing off. But he took what he thought would be the closest match, and ended up being perfect in size, in everything down to the antibodies. And he said that's not a normal transplant.
Very
So
rare,
it was,
I'd say.
Yeah, so, all those 2-week stays in the hospital, once I got my lungs, I stayed 10 days. And we,
Come home.
yeah.
And we started walking.
Yeah, I couldn't walk, we walked 3 miles. That first year, we walked 3 miles a day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
It
I
has
guarantee
been.
you, it was a chore before that to walk across the room.
Oh, some days, yeah. I guess, I lost lung function minimal at over a number of years. I just didn't even notice so much. So when I was the month before was the last pulmonary function test, and I was at 12% lung function.
Wow.
So in the first year, thanks to a very selfless, generous organ donor, who within the first year, my lung function went up to, I think, 84%. So. But
Felt like a new woman?
I did.
She was able to
I
do
couldn't-
things she hadn't done in years.
Yeah, I couldn't blow up a balloon. Can now.
Wow.
But we don't.
The night she got the call, we were actually at Walmart, and she couldn't walk from the door to the other door at Walmart. She was out of breath. She was on 6 liters of oxygen. And I remember telling her, just stay here and I'll get the stuff and then we'll get in the car. I remember getting in the car and starting back to Springfield, and I was like, God, you know when she needs them? And I know you got a perfect time, and just let it match up with mine. And when we backed in the driveway that night, we got the call. So, and I was watching her struggle to breathe on 6 liters of oxygen, taking 14 breathing treatments a day to even get her breath enough to sit, much less do anything else.
Yeah,
So,
So life before transplant, it was very different. Life after transplant is very different. We don't know anything about my donor, except I know one of the surgeons flew to Atlanta that night, and my lungs are from a female. I think maybe she was young, like 20-ish. We maybe heard, but
yeah,
you
we
know,
kind of
and,
heard information we probably shouldn't have, but we didn't put a lot of relevance in it.
and initially I sent a card. The transplant team, I suppose, gives everybody this
Well, it
guess.
goes through CODA.
Well, yeah, that was Dakota. A card that we sent to the family, and then written letters. That you know, it's just hard to describe.
Well, I'm just
To say thank you.
I'm just glad. Well, of course. But you know, we know you're an important person.
Well, I'm pretty
And
sure
we're
God-
happy that you got that lung transplant.
too.
And you know, I had no idea that, you know, the condition that you were in prior to the transplant. I knew it was tough, and I know there were times that, you know, I know there was one time we weren't sure you were going to make it home.
Yeah.
And, but you know, the thing about you, Lisa, is who would ever know? You never complained about a thing. She always had a smile. Has a smile on your face, and
Well, I kept that confidential. I didn't want anybody to know.
yeah,
She lived her whole life not wanting anybody's pity.
yeah,
Because unfortunately, when we were younger, if you were different because you had a disability or something wrong with
True.
you, you were treated very different. Today, that's full circle. It's not like that. It seems that people who have disabilities or who are different are protected now. Where, you know, 30.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say how long ago, but it was a little different.
Yeah.
So you know, it was in the era we grew up, and so she didn't want anybody to know, and she didn't want me to know until one night she called me up
okay.
and said, "You can walk away now. I have cystic fibrosis." And I went, "What's that?" I didn't have a clue what it was, and so that's when we started going back, and she started getting treatment, and I was like, she said, "I'm gonna die." We all are, you know.
That is true.
It's not a question. It's kind of like the donation factor for me is, if I'm not using them, God give them to somebody that can.
that's right.
You know, I firmly believe that. I've believed that my whole life, and it's like you said, it's kind of comical some of the questions that get asked.
Yeah.
And I've heard
Well,
the
people
statement
have,
said,
yeah.
"Well, God give it to me, and I'm going to take it with me." And I say, "No, you're not. You're going to put it in the ground. It's going to go to dust. You're not taking it with you."
That's right.
You know,
But Lisa and Ray both have started to be big advocates now for Washington County. So whenever I'm having something, I call them and they show up. So,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
we need. We need to make more people aware. We can talk. We talk to civic groups. I'm going to set up a talk for the high school. I mean, just because you're young, you can't tell your parents. Tell them you want to be an organ donor. You don't have to be
Right.
over 18. You can
Yeah.
tell your parents now that you want to be an organ donor. So we're going to make more and more people in this county who's very generous and have
Yeah.
gone way beyond the call than most counties that we need more people.
Yeah.
We need more people.
Yeah.
It's definitely affected our lives. I have two aunts who have had, one had a single lung transplant in the 1990s. And then I had a cousin, he had cystic fibrosis as well. He had a double lung transplant in the summer before I had mine. I got my call. And my mom's, a second sister of my mom's has just had a double lung transplant in December of last year, and she's doing really well in Bardstown. So, you know, I mean, I just can't stress enough or put into words what it is, what it means.
What kind of
to-
gift it
yeah,
is, isn't it?
Yeah, what a blessing.
Yeah, it
That
is.
People would be so selfless and give, you know,
Well,
and,
it's
and we all should, you know, sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't just have to sign up when you get your driver's license. I've had that question too. There's a website, and it's www.donatelifekentucky.org, and you can go on there without doing your driver's license and sign up for the registry. You do not. I mean, we're going to ask you that question when you come and get your driver's license, but if you think you got to think about it for a while or maybe talk to your parents or family, then you can still go on the website and sign up to be an organ donor.
I've also had a lot of people say, "Well, I don't know nobody that's ever needed a lung transplant or needed any type of organ." I say, "Well, everybody. Now you do. Now
Yeah.
you've met somebody who benefited from it,
And like I said, there's been
Oh,
I can
gosh,
name.
I can
I don't want to
think of
name
so many
people's
people.
names, but
Uh-huh.
I know so many people that have received organs.
just in this county
Yeah,
alone.
and just
Just
in this
in-
county.
right.
Yeah.
Just in this county.
As you said, hearts. I mean, I can think of a recent heart, couple of heart recipients, older person and a little
Young.
child, baby. So
And I think one of you might have mentioned him how that has had a heart transplant. I think it's been close to 20 years now. I believe.
Yep.
You know,
do what now? Someone-
there's one here in the county
that has been 20 years since
Yeah.
that.
that he
We
has
have
had
a
his
lung
heart.
transplant that lives here that's been 12 or 13 years now. She was like, oh, it's probably more than that. She was around 10 years right when you got yours.
So it
she's
gives
about
them a
14
quality
years.
of life that they've never had,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it gives them some hope for their future. And
Yeah.
what better gift could you give to
Well,
at all?
exactly.
And a legacy to
Yeah,
me, you know.
yeah,
that,
yeah.
You
And
helped
so-
enable,
Yeah.
elongate someone else's life.
So you know that's been 4 years now since you had yours,
Yes, ma'am.
and it has really improved your quality of life, and so, and I know that at first you were having to take a whole lot of medications, but I think some of those have been reduced, haven't they?
True. And with cystic fibrosis, you know, the double lung transplant is not a cure for CF. I still have cystic fibrosis. My lungs no longer have cystic fibrosis, so I don't require the breathing treatments. Some of my medications, you know, that I now take are due to the CF, and it's just your general vitamins, you know, that vitamin E, vitamin A, those kinds of things. So, but you know, I'd do it all over again
Yeah.
if I had the chance. You know, if I were, I don't want to have to go through it again. You know, prayerfully these will last me a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I would, and you know,
Yeah.
but it's a blessed gift, like you said.
Yeah.
And there really aren't any words really to say thank you to families like yourself.
Well,
And,
you know, I think it's, you know, as I said, it's a blessing that the families have received because, you know, like there's a little bit of Mike out there somewhere with,
Still, yeah.
with somebody.
It might be in Frankfurt.
and you know, so what better way for you know than to give? I mean, it's the gift of life. So
Yes.
there you
It
are.
keeps on giving.
It keeps on giving.
And really,
Yes.
that statement is so underrated because you don't realize what the gift of life is until you're right there losing life and thinking, am I going to wake up tomorrow? Am I going to breathe tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then, you know, bam, in less than 24 hours, you're breathing.
Yeah.
That
Through new lungs.
oxygen.
I mean, I watched
That-
her, you know, it was funny because I watched her go from 6 liters of oxygen and kind of gasping for breath, taking breathing treatments to breathe, to coming off the vent after the surgery and keeping her oxygen laid up here because she was like, that had been her lifeline for 6 years.
Yeah.
She had to live on oxygen and she wanted to have it. In case she couldn't breathe, she wanted to be able to put it on. She was breathing through new lungs, and it took 4 or 5 days before it finally clicked that I don't need oxygen. I don't have to do breathing treatments. I don't have to do any of that stuff I used to. And just the change overnight in life was amazing.
And it, you know, I was pretty secure in my oxygen, you know, supplemental oxygen tubing, but you know, it was a really good feeling when they came and picked up my oxygen concentrator at my house. You know, I actually set it on the porch because I became a little bit of a germaphobe, so I didn't know who was going to pick it up. So I told Ray, I was like, set it all on the porch, and they can just come and get it, and I won't have to be in contact with them in case they're sick or something. So
Yeah.
You better
that is
explain
a
that
little.
germaphobe part of it. It's not just a
Well, being,
phobia.
you know, I am on immunosuppress medication because to keep my system from rejecting the foreign to them at that time lungs, I do take a medication that prevents. It's an
suppresses it.
anti-rejection med, so it does lower my immune system slightly. So, I'm susceptible to picking up on germs very easily. But
Where we
you know,
catch a
what are West
cold,
gifts?
we get over it, she would probably be hospitalized if she gets, especially flu. Flu would be one of the things that she would have to go in the hospital for to be able to get over, because her body would not build the immunity to it that we will. So, it changes life a little bit, but I got to say, all the changes that we've had to do for transplant far outweighs the changes that our life had with cystic fibrosis and her not being able to breathe. I mean, it's there's no comparison.
It is a scary feeling not to be able to breathe, or whatever your situation that you may need a organ transplant. Not being able to breathe is a very scary situation, but I can now way easily. Just don't ever take life for granted, that's for sure.
Well, and it's
anyway,
like
but-
Ray said, none of us are guaranteed life forever. And so, one way or another, we're not going to be here one of these days. But while you are here, things of this nature that, where for those that can donate and give an organ to, be able to prolong someone's life that's been disrupted from an illness such as that, such as cystic fibrosis, or, I know of people that, it's just
Kidney
amazing, the
disease.
kidney disease and all these things, and the heart conditions, and so, and for those people to get life, I'm just delighted that that program exists, and it's come a long way. And in Washington County, we just want to increase that donor list, and because we have, like you said, people right here in this county, lots of people that are getting organs, and as a result of that, it has improved their quality of life. And
Well, I don't know of anybody that we know of that's had an organ donation that would not say they would do it again, and would not just be so thankful for the second chance at life that they've had, because everyone we know has their life has changed so dramatically, and they've been able to do things they weren't being. They were tied to a machine, or they were tied to dialysis, or they were tied, to a pattern life that's, they don't have that pattern no more. They're able to go and do and live life, and
And they appreciate life.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
appreciate
so much.
life.
Just
more.
like you were sitting down there during the your bake sale and all of that the other day,
Thank you.
you wouldn't have been able to do that
That's true. That is true.
before.
That
Sat out
12%.
there in that
No,
sun.
I
and-
wouldn't be here today. I don't
Yeah.
believe 4 years later
Yeah.
at 12% if it weren't for
Yeah.
organ donation
Yeah.
from a selfless giving person.
I mean, we had known for 5 years prior to the donation that she was going to need a transplant. We're well aware that her lungs were deteriorating. We're well aware that her lung function was dropping. But even at that moment, it was still hitting a brick wall. And that's the thing that, we were going through life, and she was doing everything she could to maintain her quality of life. Well, there's only so much medicine and treatments and oxygen can do. Parts are going to wear out, especially when they're like this genetic disease, cystic fibrosis, or kidneys, and there's only so much you can do on this side of transplant. And when she said she went in for 2 weeks, thinking it's a tune-up and I'll get out, and then we'll go through the process to get listed, and she was told, you're not getting out of the hospital until you get a lung transplant. That was around the 18th of December, and so got a lot of people praying about that, and on the 23rd of December she came home. and we had a little trial getting listed. There were some things that were complicated about getting listed.
Oh,
So we
okay.
got a bunch of people praying about that. On the Sunday before, she got the call on that Tuesday night that she was being listed on Wednesday. So then that Sunday we got her to pray about when his timing was to get lungs. The next Tuesday we got a call for a transplant. So, you know, we can talk about everybody's role in organ donation. This question's been asked to me. God, give me these lungs. He give me this heart. He give me these eyes. I want to take them with me. You know, well, I'm going to tell you, donation wouldn't happen if he wasn't behind it, because I believe what the book says, all good things come from God. And you can't get much better than a second chance at life.
Yeah.
So,
And,
Yeah.
you know, anybody that watches this program and they're not signed up to be an organ donor and they want to be, they can still go on the website, www.oregonkentucky.org, donatelife.org, and sign up for it.
And then Joanne, they could call your office
Yes,
too to
most
get information.
definitely. Most
So
definitely.
they could call the Washington County Circuit Clerk's office.
Yes,
And that number is
859-336-3761. And
and
we'll be glad to give them any information, or if they've got questions to ask, we'll be glad to give it to them.
yeah.
So,
And so anything in conclusion?
no, just sign. Please be an organ donor.
Please
Sign.
register that you want to be. Let
and
your
for
loved
those
ones
of y'all that are organ donors, thank you so much.
And yes, for this community, our family, our friends, this community, the surrounding communities, our church, we just want to say thank you to all of you.
Well, that's very good of you. And so everyone in the listening audience, please be sure and register to be an organ donor. We've got lots of recipients here in this county, and I'm sure we'll need more
Continue.
more organs, because there's always a need. So thank you all very much for being here today, and I'm just delighted you're doing so much
thank you.
better. And Ray, it's good to have you, and Joanne, thank you for coming.
Thank